It's in the headlines every day, and even that doesn't give a full view of how large of an issue addiction is in our communities. I'm Bill Anderson, and so many people believe that to help address the opioid crisis, you first have to fully understand it. So we start in Kensington, an area too well known for its drug problems, and an organization 30 years into trying to help.
We're having the opioid issue and the crisis all over the country. In Philadelphia, we're particularly hard hit because there's certain areas of the city where this is so concentrated.
José Benitez and Prevention Point recently acknowledged 30 years of providing services, most recently in and around Kensington, frankly, because that's where the most concentrated need exists.
What we're seeing is a lot of folks that have come into Kensington to sort of either buy, use, sell drugs, and that's been the situation here for several years now in the Kensington community, and I think that it's just really puts a strain on the people that live here.
Seeing literally thousands of people battling addiction weekly makes them perhaps uniquely qualified to explain the challenge presented by the current opioid crisis.
Prior to COVID, I would have probably predicted that we'll see a drop in the number of people that are using opioids, and we did exactly the opposite. We almost tripled, those numbers.
The isolation of COVID certainly contributed, but it was just one of so many factors.
The illicit drug market has changed so much. It used to be that, you kind of like about 10 years ago bought heroin. There weren't nearly the number of overdose deaths related to heroin. And then what got introduced in the illicit drug market was fentanyl.
Most of us have heard of fentanyl and how deadly it is, even to those non-users coming in contact with it. But that's just one of the fairly new mixtures with deadly consequences.
What you also have now is a mixture of different kinds of other drugs. One of them is Tranq, which is xylazine, a horse tranquilizer, basically, which gets mixed with fentanyl, heroin.
Widespread availability is a factor, price is a factor, and even well-intentioned government scrutiny has apparently played a role in increased addiction and overdose.
It's cheap. You can buy a bag for $5. And I think that what we've seen are people who started with opioid prescriptions. The state started to monitor the opioid prescriptions, right? It got more difficult for people to sort of get a safer supply, so they worked their way down to heroin.
So that's where we are, or at least part of it. But the bigger part of what Prevention Point does is help us understand what now?
We wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't hope, right? I think that's one of the first things that we always have to say to people. There is some hope, right? Like, we have people that walk through our door every single day. We have people that work here who were our participants at one point, getting a service, and now want to give back, right? So there's always hope.
To them, hope looks like addiction treatment and syringe exchange programs. Admittedly controversial, but they believe necessary to perhaps keep people alive until they're ready for help.
Our medically assisted treatment clinics are both mobile. We're providing treatment for opioid use disorder to people who request it from us right off of a syringe exchange line sometimes.
To them, hope looks like providing meals and a usable address.
So we have a post office that we do that with, provide over like 5,000 people with a place with an address so that they can get access to some mail. A wonderful program where, over 250,000 meals went out.
They provide restrooms, both to those battling addiction and to help the many families just trying to live in the middle of it.
Trying to be good neighbors in Kensington, we have folks folks who live on the street and they can come in to use the restrooms rather than, use the sidewalks, essentially.
Prevention Point serves as perhaps the most important reminder that so many need, that addiction doesn't exist in some isolated bubble that only happens to the others. It impacts all of us and is all of our responsibility to try to address.
There's some just basic needs that we need to remember, that those are our brothers, our sisters, cousins, friends who are out there. Having this human approach to folks is always helpful. I think that oftentimes people just feel invisible.